You need to watch this if you crave chills down your spine. Welcome to Soul Studios. Here, true crime meets the unknown. Suspense lurks in every shadow, and supernatural forces whisper from the dark. We craft chilling, edge-of-your-seat short stories inspired by the eerie, the unexplained, and the most haunting mysteries. 3 new stories drop every week, each one darker than the last. Are you ready to step inside? Subscribe now before the next story finds you.
A group of friends set out for a late-night ghost hunt in the notorious Ravenswood House, armed with flashlights, a camera, and skeptical bravery. But as playful curiosity gives way to chilling dread, they quickly realize they're not alone. Something unseen whispers from the shadows and follows their every move. In a house holding secrets darker than they ever imagined. This haunting investigation will make them question everything they thought they knew about the afterlife. If you think you can handle true stories that blur the line between the living and the dead, hit subscribe and turn on notifications now. Because once the lights go out at Soul Studios, you'll never know what's standing right behind you. It started as a harmless late-night dare, the kind of thrill-seeking adventure ordinary teenagers dream up on a boring weekend. 4 of us set out to explore the old Ravenswood House on the edge of town. My best friend Mark had volunteered to be our cameraman for the night, and our other friends Alyssa and Devon were eager to join the adventure. The dilapidated Victorian had been abandoned for decades, looming behind twisted oak trees and a rusted iron gate. Rumor had it the place was haunted, but standing there under the overcast midnight sky, it just felt like another empty house. We joked nervously as we jiggled open a back window, hearts pounding with excited fear. At that moment, nothing felt more real than a group of friends on an adventure, armed with flashlights, a digital camera, and shaky courage. Once inside, we found the interior surprisingly intact and eerily ordinary. Dusty family portraits still hung on peeling wallpaper, and faded floral couches sat undisturbed in the parlor. The air was stale, carrying the scent of old wood and something faintly sweet like rotten fruit. I remember Mark whispering, "This is so creepy," but in a thrilled way as his camera's red recording light blinked. Despite the unsettling quiet, we felt oddly comfortable. After all, we'd wandered dozens of haunted places before without incident. It was just another exploration to record for our budding YouTube channel. We had no idea that this night would be different. We hadn't been in Ravenswood House more than 10 minutes when the first strange thing happened. Alyssa was leading the way through the front hall, sweeping her flashlight over dust-coated mirrors and drapes, when a floorboard creaked loudly behind us. We all spun around, but no one was there. The 4 of us had been huddled close. None of us stood near that spot. "Probably just the house settling," Devin mumbled, trying to sound casual. We laughed it off, but I realized my hands had begun to tremble. Mark even zoomed in on the floor with the camera, only to find the old wood still and silent. It was likely nothing, we told ourselves, yet our comfortable facade had cracked slightly. We pressed on deeper into the house, arriving at a grand foyer where an ornate staircase spiraled upstairs into darkness. We gathered at its base, and Mark suggested trying a quick EVP session, where you ask questions and hope the camera's microphone picks up a ghostly reply. It was a silly tradition of ours, more for fun than serious investigation. Devon cleared his throat and called out into the shadowy foyer, half joking, "Is anyone here with us? Give us a sign." We waited, grinning nervously at each other in the gloom. For a long moment, nothing happened, just the distant rumble of thunder outside. I was about to exhale when we all heard it, a faint whisper from somewhere above us. The sound was so soft I almost thought I imagined it, until I saw Alyssa's eyes widen and Mark's face go pale behind the camera. The whisper was unmistakable, though none of us could decipher the words. That sounded like a voice," Alyssa said quietly. No one disagreed. Our easy laughter from minutes before was gone, replaced by a creeping unease. Still, Curiosity and adrenaline drove us onward. We decided to head up the staircase, reasoning that the old house's acoustics were playing tricks, maybe a draft from a cracked window. As we ascended, each step produced an exaggerated groan from the wood. I walked in front with Alyssa. Mark followed close behind, filming over our shoulders, and Devon trailed us. Halfway up, the lights flickered. A bare hallway bulb on the landing above swung gently, its pale glow dying to darkness, then sputtering back. We all froze. "Power's still working," Devon whispered. It was odd. We hadn't expected electricity at all in a place like this. Mark panned his camera upward to capture the swaying bulb. Through the lens, he later told us, he thought he saw a shadow flit across the top of the stairs. In the moment, he said nothing, but I sensed him hesitate. At the top, 2 corridors stretched out, one toward a row of small bedrooms, the other toward what looked like a master suite. The atmosphere felt heavier here. The air was colder, carrying a slight odor of decay that hadn't been noticeable downstairs. I pulled my jacket tighter around myself. Suddenly, Alyssa's phone buzzed loudly in the silence, making us all jump. It was just an automated text from her cell provider about data usage. We exhaled shaky laughs, a little embarrassed at how rattled we were by something so ordinary. The little shock reminded us we were still in the modern world, phones and all, not characters in a horror film. "Let's stick together, okay?" I suggested. No one objected. We chose the master suite first. The door was half ajar, its brass knob tarnished green. As we entered, our flashlights swept over an antique vanity, a canopy bed shrouded in dusty curtains, and cracked French doors leading to a balcony. Mark's camera light cast a steady beam across the room. In the silence, I could hear our own breathing. Then came another sign. On the vanity table, a small music box lay open, and it suddenly began to play a soft tune. The melody was a slow, tinny lullaby that tinkled off-key in the darkness. Alyssa clapped a hand over her mouth. "Oh my God," Devon breathed, barely above a whisper. None of us had touched the box, yet its tiny ballerina figurine was turning on its own, rotating in a dreadful slow dance. Mark edged closer, filming the eerie scene. His voice trembled as he asked, Is that the sign we asked for?" Almost in response, the music box lid slammed shut, cutting off the tune. We all flinched in unison. This was no longer fun and games. Something was very wrong with this house. For a long moment, none of us spoke. I could hear the rain outside intensify. A distant rumble of thunder rolled through the empty halls, and I felt the floor tremble ever so slightly beneath my feet. In a flash of lightning that flickered through the balcony doors, I caught a glimpse of Mark's face. He looked as frightened as I felt, yet there was also a strange determination in his eyes. Ever the documentarian, he kept the camera rolling, as if the act of filming might somehow shield him, shield all of us from whatever lurked in the shadows. My mind raced back to the stories I'd heard about Ravenswood House. I remembered my grandmother mentioning a tragedy here long ago, something about a family who lost a child and tried desperately to contact the dead. As that memory surfaced unbidden, I realized my hands were shaking. This scenario was uncannily like the ghost stories that had kept me awake as a kid. Back then, I would hide under the covers, imagining every creak of the floor was a phantom approaching. Now, I was living it. A cold wave of nausea and fear washed over me, and for a second I thought I might actually be sick. Sensing my dread, Alyssa gently touched my arm, offering a reassuring squeeze. Her face was pale in the flashlight glow, but she managed a weak smile. Somehow that small gesture helped, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this. Devon moved closer too. Even in the dark, I could tell he was rattled, his earlier bravado gone. We formed a tight cluster in the center of that master bedroom, drawing strength from each other's presence. No one wanted to admit it out loud, but I think we all were wondering the same thing. What have we gotten ourselves into? Suddenly, Mark lowered the camera from his shoulder. "Maybe we should go check out that sound we heard earlier," he suggested quietly. There was a strange edge to his voice. It took me a second to realize what he meant, the whisper we'd heard in the foyer. We were already upstairs, so I frowned in confusion. "You mean the whisper? From back near the other hallway?" I asked. Mark nodded slowly and then, to my surprise, pointed toward the far corner of the master bedroom, where a second door stood slightly ajar. It was easy to miss, half hidden in the wood panelling. None of us had noticed it until now. I think I heard something behind there," Mark added, already moving toward that dark, narrow doorway. A ripple of dread passed through me. We had thoroughly explored the rest of the upstairs. Whatever remained could only be behind that door. Devon took a deep breath and stepped forward, taking the lead. He pushed the narrow door open all the way, the hinges emitting a drawn-out creak. Beyond it, a steep stairwell led down into pitch darkness, a back staircase, perhaps leading to a cellar. A cold, damp draught wafted up from below, carrying the sharp stench of wet earth and decay. I gagged at the smell, covering my nose and mouth with my sleeve. "Is that a basement?" Alyssa whispered, voice quavering. None of us had known Ravenswood House even had a basement. We huddled at the top of the staircase, shining our flashlights downward. The beam of my light barely pierced the thick darkness. Concrete steps descended to what looked like a dirt floor at the bottom. As I squinted, I noticed something pale on the ground below. Was that a hand? My stomach lurched. It looked eerily like a human hand lying palm up on the floor, just beyond the last step. "Hello?" I called out, my voice tiny and hollow as it echoed down. Only the drip of water answered from below. Mark aimed the camera into the dark, the device's light scarcely reaching the bottom. "We have to go down," he said under his breath. His tone was oddly flat and urgent. Alyssa grabbed his free arm, her eyes pleading in the dim light. "Wait, Mark. Maybe we should call the cops. What if someone's down there and hurt?" she stammered. Her logic was sound, but Devon held up his phone and shook his head grimly. "No signal," he said. Typical. In horror movies, the lack of a cell signal always spells trouble. I felt a jolt of real panic, realizing this cliché was now our reality. Against every screaming instinct, we began to descend those narrow stairs one by one. Each step sagged and protested under our weight. The deeper we went, the colder it became. The smell of damp earth and something metallic, blood, grew stronger. I felt my heart thudding against my ribcage so hard it hurt. By the time my foot hit the dirt floor, I was shaking from head to toe. Alyssa was right behind me, then Mark, then Devon. Our lights fanned out across the cellar. It was a small, unfinished basement with rough stone walls and a low ceiling. Puddles of water had collected on the ground, and in the center of the floor, illuminated by all our flashlights, was the body of a teenage boy. I recognized the navy blue jacket and jeans instantly. It was Mark's outfit. The boy lay face up and deathly still, one arm outstretched. Jagged wooden beams and plastered debris were strewn around him, as if part of the ceiling above had collapsed. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. No, I whimpered, my throat tightening. I heard Alyssa suck in a sharp breath and then start to quietly sob. Devon muttered, "Oh God, Mark," his voice broken and disbelieving. I forced myself to inch closer to the body. The beam of my flashlight trembled over the figure's face. It was Mark. His skin was waxy pale, and a dried stream of blood ran from a gash on his temple. Judging by the rubble, he must have fallen through a weak patch of floorboards from the hallway above. A shattered section of wood loomed overhead. The horrific realization hit me like a bolt of ice. Mark had arrived early and fallen. He'd been lying dead down here the whole time we were inside the house. Yet, something, had been with us upstairs, talking in Mark's voice, walking in Mark's shoes, holding Mark's camera. I stumbled backward, a scream building in my chest that refused to come out. A strangled gasp from Alyssa cut through the silence. She was pointing at the stairs. "Mark?" she choked out. I followed her gaze. There on the bottom step stood Mark, or rather, a transparent figure resembling Mark, watching us with an expression of heartbreak and horror. He flickered at the edges as if lit by a stuttering fluorescent light. Our flashlight beams shone straight through him. Mark, the ghost of Mark, locked eyes with me, and I saw tears in his eyes. I'm right here," he whispered, as if begging us to understand. But even as those words left his lips, his form began to waver. The camera slipped from Ghost Mark's hands and hit the ground with a thud. In the same instant, there was a soft whoosh, like a candle flame being blown out, and the figure of my best friend vanished. One heartbeat, he was there on the stair. The next, he was gone. The only thing that remained was Mark's body, lifeless on the cold ground, and the echo of that final whisper. For a moment, the three of us were too stunned to move. It was as if the darkness itself was holding its breath. Then Devin let out a panicked yelp and bolted for the stairs. That jolted Alyssa and me free of our trance. I grabbed the fallen camera. For reasons I still can't explain, it was pure instinct, and we chased after Devin, scrambling up the steps in a blind frenzy. We raced out of the master bedroom, down the main hall, and practically tumbled down the grand staircase. I don't even remember yanking the front door open, but soon we were out in the front yard, rain pounding on our faces. We didn't stop running until we were all the way down the street, where the glow of a street lamp finally brought us to a heaving, shivering halt. Clutching each other under that flickering light, we stared back at the silhouette of Ravenswood House. Through an upstairs window, I thought I saw a faint silhouette standing there, a lone figure on the second floor. A flash of lightning lit up the house, and the window was empty. Mark was gone. We survived that night, but nothing felt the same afterward. The police later told us that Mark must have arrived at Ravenswood House a bit ahead of us and wandered upstairs, where the rotted floor gave way. He fell to the cellar and died on impact. The estimated time of his accident was before we even entered the house. Hearing that made my skin crawl. We realized with dawning horror that whoever, whatever, had been with us after that point was not truly alive. It looked like Mark, talked like Mark, and believed it was Mark. But it wasn't a living person. We chose not to tell the authorities about the impossible things we experienced. Who would ever believe it? In the weeks that followed, the three of us clung to each other for support, trying to process the trauma. Late at night, I'd lie awake questioning every memory. The creaking floorboard, the flickering light, the whisper, the music box. Were those phenomena Mark's spirit trying to get our attention? Or were they just tricks of an old house, coincidences that primed us to accept the unbelievable? We reviewed the footage on Mark's camera obsessively, searching for clues. Much of it played back exactly as we remembered, up until the moment in the basement. Strangely, whenever the camera caught a glimpse of Mark during the night, the image would distort or blur, as if the device itself knew something was wrong. And that whisper we recorded in the foyer? When we cleaned up the audio, it sounded like Mark's voice quietly urging, "Downstairs." It still sends a chill through me. Somehow he was guiding us to find him. Eventually, we agreed to put the footage away for good. We didn't want to exploit what happened for online views. This wasn't a spooky adventure we could brag about. It was the loss of our friend. We held a quiet memorial for Mark a week later. The three of us returned to Ravenswood House in daylight just once, to leave flowers by the old gate. None of us dared to step inside again. As we stood there, I whispered an awkward goodbye into the breeze, thanking Mark for sticking with us to the end. Alyssa swore she felt a gentle, cold wind wrap around her in that moment, like an unseen hug. I like to think Mark heard us. To this day, we haven't gone on another ghost hunt. The thrill just isn't there anymore, not after knowing how real it can get. Instead, we meet up in safer places, a bright diner on Main Street or Devon's living room, and we talk about Mark. Sometimes we even watch a few minutes of the footage from that night, especially the early part where we were all laughing and teasing each other. It reminds us that what happened truly did happen, no matter how unbelievable it sounds. We'll catch a glimpse of a shadow in a frame or hear that faint whisper, and a heavy silence will fall between us. There are still so many unanswered questions, so many things we witnessed that we struggle to understand. In quiet moments, I often think back to that final look on Mark's face as he stood on the stairs, realizing the truth. There was fear, yes, but also a kind of peace. As if he took comfort in the fact that we were there with him, that he wasn't alone at the end. It breaks my heart and heals it at the same time. The unknown lingers, and maybe it always will. I don't think any of us will ever forget the night we hunted a ghost, only to discover our friend had been the one haunting us. It's a story we carry with us, a reminder that life is fragile and mysterious. And every so often, when I find myself doubting what we lived through, I'll wake in the middle of the night and catch a glimpse of a shadow in my doorway, or hear the floorboards creak in an otherwise empty house. I'll hold my breath and wonder if Mark is stopping by to check in on us. The thought is terrifying and comforting all at once. In those moments, I simply whisper into the darkness, "I miss you, buddy." Sometimes the spirits we chase aren't strangers. They're the ones we miss the most. Be careful who you summon in the dark, because you might not be prepared for who answers back. And remember, some goodbyes last forever. Be careful who you hunt. You might find them.
Every story has an end, but here, the mysteries never stop. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey into the unknown. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's plenty more waiting for you. We drop 3 new stories every week, so if you crave suspense, the unexplained, and the downright chilling, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what's next. Until then, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, some stories stay with you long after they're told.